The end is near. And I think what has occurred over the last 2 days has shown many investors the fact that macro events are still going to impact the crypto market. ETFs, new investors, overall extra interest in the crypto space isn't going to save us from these drawdowns. As a matter of fact, we might even be more volatile to some degree because we now have more paper hands, beginners, people who don't really see the long-term vision and are more so invested for the short-term gains. So I wanted to quickly take you through some of the indicators I'm personally using to signal the top, or at least near the top of this bull cycle, which, by the way, I suspect to end within the next 12 months. That's my personal guess. And then at the end of the video, touching on how I'm going to execute a sell plan, if you will, when that time comes. Full disclosure, this isn't a full sell plan video. I have that coming up here very soon. What this is going to be covering is most importantly what I am doing that you should possibly think about when these indicators basically have the big green tick, aka they're telling us to basically get out before things get ugly. Do not forget, if you find yourself enjoying this video at any point, hit that like button. A lot of research and time goes into creating these for you guys to ensure that these are the best up-to-date, possible videos in the crypto space, and hit that subscribe button as well if you're down there to ensure you succeed this bull run. So a few days ago, I showed you guys this chart here, which is basically the short-term holders of Bitcoin, the guys who have been holding BTC for 3 months or less. So dark red is like towards the very recently bought, and the lighter orangey color is holding within 1 to 3 months. And we notice an interesting correlation between this chart and the chart down here, which is the longer term holders, aka guys holding for basically 6 to 12 months right up to 10 years. And I've actually extrapolated this chart here for you all, and I've put them against each other. And what we can find here is something very interesting. And I do want to cover this as one of my first indicators. This was brought to me by a guy called Credible Crypto, who I'm also following for one of his cycle theories, which is called the lengthening cycle. Too much to go into in this video here. I actually interviewed him. I'll leave the link down below about a week ago. And what he basically said in this is that he's using this as one of his personal indicators to signal the top of the market. And it's very interesting when we overlay these two and have a look at some of the inflection points, or the points where we have a divergence in either trend, right? So in this case, for the paper hands, right, the guys who've been holding for under 3 months, what we notice is once these guys begin buying again, and that divergence, right, we go from selling to buying, we have whales at the same time go from basically buying to selling. It's interesting. It pretty much happens at the exact same time. And at the very, very, I guess, top, or if you will, or bottom, depending how you look at the chart, once the paper hands crosses a percentage of holders overall in the market of 70%, that usually is an indicator that the top is somewhat near. And on the flip side, of course, when we cross beneath the 20% mark, the 20% long-term holder mark, we actually hit towards the very top as well. So you can see here in this sort of period, we kind of push towards the top of the bull run. Now, obviously, this isn't an exact timing of the top. This is probably a few months out, maybe 3, 4, 5 months before we hit the top. But again, that is a clear signal to us that things are likely to be ending shortly. And if we actually have a look at the 2021 cycle, the same thing happened. We had this divergence here for the short-term holders, and the long-term holders went from kind of stagnating to then rapidly selling and selling and selling. And then we dipped beneath that 20% mark. And in this case, of course, it was only about 3 months before we actually had not the all-time high, but again, that very much so would have been the all-time high, given we had, of course, a pretty weird cycle, the last cycle that wasn't normal. Now, yes, you can argue 70% and 20% are just abstract numbers. This is going off what I believe to be the areas in which we could possibly, have a topping event soon. I think maybe even 30% for the whales, or the long-term holders rather, and about 60% for the short-term holders may also be decent indicators. But again, this is to gauge where things are about to head. This doesn't really time the top so much. So, and I think it's a very important distinction, right? We're not trying to time the exact top. What we're trying to do, and as I mentioned at the end of this video, is get an idea or a gauge as to when things might be a little overvalued, right? A little overbought, in which we can begin doing things like, spoiler alert, unstaking, beginning to reconsider our sell levels if we're way off, and a whole bunch of other things as well. Now, this chart here from Bitcoin Magazine actually combines the two, this may also be a great version for you guys to use because this is free, and I'll leave the link to this down below. The ones over here from Glassnode are actually paid. You have to pay quite a bit of money to have access to these. I fortunately had the access via this article, so this is probably the better one to use, and one we'll be referring to more in later on in the market. We also have the Pi cycle top indicator. This is pretty much predicted the top of each cycle within like a few days. So very accurate in this case. Takes a few different moving averages, right? The 111-day and the 350-day moving average squared, and it's not days squared, it's another sort of metric squared. It's very confusing, right? But basically, again, you can see here where it's basically time the top. When these two cross over and touch, that signals the top. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that we should definitely use this as the top. This was one of Credible Crypto's many indicators he mentioned in that interview. However, it is, again, a good idea or a good gauge into where we might end up, all right? Again, we're not trying to time the top here. When these two get very close, okay, we can begin to assume the top possibly is near. Now, like Credible said, and I will definitely echo in this video, guys, charts and these sort of indicators are only as good until they're not good. They only work until they don't, right? So we can't use this for definitive sake and say, I'm going to base everything on the Pi cycle indicator because all it takes is one wrong cycle or something else to enter the fray, and all of a sudden it goes out the window, similar to the stock to flow model, right? Now, this is another indicator I think is a great one to leverage. In this case, it's the MVRVZ score. I know, right? It's basically the market value paired off with the realized value, and this Z score basically works out the difference between the two and puts it on this deviation scale, this orange sort of scale we can see here. Essentially, it just finds the standard deviation between the two. And what we can see here is once the market begins to hit a point in which essentially it's overbought, it goes in the red zone here. So a score between 7 plus, so 7 to 10. And we can see there's actually pretty well timed the top of each cycle. Okay, once we enter this sort of 6 to 7 score in this red zone, it's looking like the market, again, is overbought, right? Now, again, we didn't get anywhere near that recently, which is a good sign to see. Of course, green zone here is a great time to buy, so this might be a good indicator for the next bear market. I might zoom in a little bit here for you guys who can't quite see. I know I get comments all the time about that. But nevertheless, I think maybe pulling down to a score of 6 to be safe might be a better way to gauge the top of the market. So I'll be following this quite closely, again, because I do think it has a lot of value, right? It pretty much takes what the current market cap is, what the market cap is if we were to pretty much price in each Bitcoin from when it was actually bought. So right back from like a couple cents right to the current day or whatever this is, like $60,000 per Bitcoin, and then works out the standard deviation between the two. Hence, we get this nice orange line. So again, great use of an indicator, I believe here. Another great indicator I've just located myself is the investor capitalization chart. And we can actually see this chart here basically signals the top essentially every single time, right? So as this gets closer and closer to actually touching the current price of Bitcoin, it is a pretty good indication that, hey, might be time to sell or lay off, right? Reduce some risk, take some profits, if you will. This happened in every single cycle, as you can see. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to touch, but when it does or gets close to, again, you might want to just de-risk. We zoom into 2018 over here. If you had literally sold even over here or even here, okay, you would have been just fine. And again, more recently, it gets kind of interesting, touches a few times. Nevertheless, it would have been a pretty good time to set some risk aside in this case. Again, it's better to actually make money than hold on for the hope of not losing any, okay, and then you end up losing more, all right? So we can see here, this is back just recently, just gone. If you would have sold when it touched back over here a few months ago, right back in January, you'd actually be in a pretty good position right now. You would have made some money in January, and you would have been able to buy a much better dip currently. So look, again, these are just indicators. We kind of use them in combination with one another to get a better idea, right? When these whales start selling and a few of these indicators begin ticking and paper hands begin rapidly buying, it's usually a pretty good time to tell. Now, of course, all of this, I believe, is going to be 10 times more impactful if there is articles being pushed online. Always happens, by the way, in a bullish sentiment saying we have all this amazing news happening and guys, buy Bitcoin. Bitcoin is going to 500K. And guess what? That is a way in which whales really, and by the way, they buy the marketing for these articles, you know, it's 20, 30 grand a piece. For them, it's nothing. They're dealing with millions and billions, right? Tricks us retail investors into believing the market's got so much more momentum to still come. And what happens is, of course, they begin rapidly selling. So that is another indicator to use as well. Just general sentiment. Again, like I always say, whatever is kind of on the surface, the usual opposite is bubbling underneath. So here's what I will be doing personally speaking. Again, these indicators shouldn't be solely used to time the top, but we can locate the rough top, and I believe will be a good chance for us to de-risk. So once we see that initial divergence back over here in this chart, right, we see this initial flip. Again, we have some months to prepare here. Like I show over here, 15 months, 10 months, we have a long time to prepare. So what I'll be doing is enacting some of the following. Number one, unstaking altcoins with a long unstake period, so 5 or more days. Now remember, guys, altcoins move in narratives. They move all up at once, different from other narratives, different from Bitcoin. So all gaming will go up at the same time and they'll all come down. So yes, we might be unstaking prematurely here on some of these narratives. Like you might not have DeFi pop off until 5 months after you unstake, but it's much better in my personal opinion. I don't care what you do. Honestly, at this point, it's your own money, but I'm not taking on the extra risk personally to guess when that narrative might pop off. I might wake up the next day and all the DeFi coins are popping off, all my sell levels are being hit, and guess what? I'm stuck here sucking my thumb, holding my coins, thinking, damn, I wish I just unstaked, right? So I'm not making the same mistakes as the last cycle. So once we have that divergence, once we are confirmed in the official flip from whales or basically long-term holders into paper holders, and a few of these indicators begin getting closer, I'm getting out. I'm unstaking, guys. I'm not selling until my sell levels are hit, but I'm unstaking. Recalibrating my sell levels and setting them on a reliable exchange. So not increasing my sell levels, mind you. I'm not going to be doing that. I'll be using my portfolio exit tracker available in the private community to go ahead and punch in all the sell levels I set, like near protocol here, hypothetically $35, right? Making sure I get out at my $35 here. So I'm making my money, hypothetical money, by the way. And again, this is all a part of that portfolio exit sheet. We can see over here the percentages sold, ensuring you're getting out at the price you want. Many people in crypto forget to consider the percent of the portfolio they sell at the sell levels, which means ultimately they usually end up at a lower price they're intending to get out of, which means they make less money. And so I'm setting all of this on an exchange. Once we have a reliable exchange like Caleb and Brown, links down below, they're actually a brokerage, and I'm going to have all that met and hit. So I'm taken care of. I can sleep well at night knowing they're on a safe exchange or a safer exchange, and also I have them all plugged in, ready to go. But like I said, don't increase your sell levels. You will get greedy. Trust me. You'll hear these predictions, you'll see the market going up, you'll believe more in the coins once again, and you will think, there's not going to be a red day to come. These coins will keep going up, especially if you're a beginner. You will get caught off guard, you will get dumped on. I mean, don't take my word for it. I don't mind. I mean, just have to experience the hard way. Some people are wired like that. I definitely am, okay? And in the meantime, ensure I am properly diversified with the number of coins I have, with the number of narratives I have, and also expectations, right? So cost basis and end of bull run. What do I mean? Well, diversified number of coins. Don't have too many coins, but don't have too few coins, all right? You want to be kind of spread and de-risk that way. You also want to be de-risk with narratives. Narratives, of course, gaming, DeFi, real-world assets, tokenization, whatever it may be, okay? Don't be all stuck in one. Be in a few. That way you can take advantage of the highs and lows. And if you really want to be freaky with it, compound, right? Play around with it. That's more experience. I wouldn't recommend that for anyone who is just starting off. And what do I mean by expectations with cost basis and end of bull run? Well, like this is my portfolio here. Not all my coins, but some of my coins. You can see cost basis. This is actual percentage of how much money I put into each coin. You can see heavily invested in Pith and Wormhole. But as we come over here, the sell levels I have, I'm trying to basically make this all nice and even if I can. So I'm not over leveraged in one area. If I had 45% of my portfolio being sold in Pith, that means that I am heavily reliant on my Pith sell levels, which is never a good thing in general, okay? So make sure you work out how much money you've invested, spread the risk if you can, if you're still dollar cost averaging, and also over here, make sure your sell levels are ensuring you're getting out at nice, even levels if you possibly can for each coin. And remember, if you DCA, do so correctly. Analyze the DCA before actually finding the coins that will offer the most gains. I've got a great video recently made on the channel that explains this, but detailed in the private community. So if you guys want access to all of this and to ensure you are maximizing your results this bull run, join the private community. I mean, look, guys, you're not going to regret it. It's a freaking fantastic community. You have like-minded people in there. You have access to some top minds in the space. I mean, hey, just try it out for a month and see how you feel. So guys, thank you all for watching this video. I hope it's helped you in some way, maybe given you some indicators to go ahead and do some more research on yourself. In any case, all the best for 2025. I'll talk to you all soon. Take care. Bye.